Alec, you say in challenging times, if you wait for the all clear, you often miss out. So have investors missed out?
Well, I think there's definitely still some exciting upside moving forward, but clearly the market bottomed on March 30th. So investors that are buying today have definitely missed out relative to those that were wise enough to buy, before it was clearer that we were probably past the worst situation in the Middle East. You definitely want to be buying while there's still some uncertainty. It's not easy to do, but historically, stocks bottom before conflicts tend to end. The market will look ahead and say, okay, the path to peace isn't perfect. It's not linear, but we've likely seen the worst. And stocks begin to rebound. We think we're in that setup today.
Okay, so we're in that setup today. Is too much optimism already priced in? Because, listen, we don't have a conclusion to the conflict in the Middle East. Yes, there's been an extension of the truce, right? But there's no definitive timeline on that yet. Is the worst behind us?
I think the worst is behind us because things were much worse when we were bombing them every day, a few weeks ago. So it's not about good or bad in the market. It's about better or worse. And so relative to where we were, we think we're going to continue to have some nasty headlines, but and we may see some backing and filling in the S&P 500, but we think the lows are in. And I'm happy to talk about some of the bullish fundamental drivers that I think can keep the market moving higher through the end of the year.
What are the fundamental drivers that you see, Alec?
Sure. Well, we're actually just getting into the heart of earnings season right now. But the interesting thing is that since this war began, since the beginning of the year, we've seen volatility in markets, especially in the tech sector. We've seen a big drop in valuations there. Even after the rebound, tech's trading around 23 times. It was close to 30 at its peak last fall. But the earnings trajectory for the S&P has continued to be revised higher throughout this entire period. And a lot of that is coming from AI infrastructure stocks in the tech space, as well as industrials, materials. So we're seeing the fundamental picture improving. If we look at 12-month forward earnings growth for the S&P 500, it's been revised up to 25%. The long-term 20-year average for that data point is around 7.5%. So earnings are growing about 3 times faster than they normally do. Analysts keep revising the trend higher. We're starting off the earnings season. We've got about 10% of the companies reporting, but we think this is going to be another really strong season. Guidance may be a bit muted because of what's going on in Iran, but that's to be expected. As that situation gets resolved, the full nature of the fundamentals kick back in. But I think that's really the fundamentals here. The earnings momentum is really what's starting to drive the market. Instead of geopolitics. That's still a factor, but it's not the prime factor. A month ago, geopolitics was the primary thing driving the stock market.
You manage portfolios. You don't have to tell people what your year-end target is on the S&P, do you? You don't have to do that.
Crazy.
Do you have to do? You don't have to do that, do you?
No.
What do you have a feeling that we're at the highs and headed down from here, or?
The market's pivoting, Joe, between the micro, which is good, earnings revision. It's one of the best years I remember for earnings revisions, which is really powerful. And the macro, which is, you fill in the Iran war, AI disruption, private credit, and the worries of how that's going to affect earnings. And you had a 9% decline, and I said, hey, we should be focused on earnings revision. Now you've had a 12% rally, and the market's more focused on the macro.
So then what matters?
So what matters is
we always, and I used to make fun of it because we supposedly were going to do that on one of our primetime shows.
Yeah.
We were going to get rid of the signal, or what were we doing? We were getting rid of the noise and keeping the signal, or we were doing something. So what's noise and what's signal? I would think that if you assign a multiple to earnings per share, that you can come to a number and ignore a lot of the
So here's a simple
things
metric,
that don't
Joe.
matter.
At the end of this year, we're going to be focused on next year.
Is that like the end of the day?
You asked me price targets.
At the end of this year,
at the end of this year, Right now, the number for next year, which is all that matters, forward earnings, is 375. That's consensus. That's up from 357.
Okay.
That's a big move, right?
And if rates don't come down, then what multiple do you
You know,
get?
like, I think 20 multiples reasonable.
20 times?
Yeah, so
Okay.
that's pretty reasonable. Now, at 6,300, where the market was a couple weeks ago, that's a lot. Now at 7,100, market seems overbought. So I think we're just pivoting between the micro and the macro. But at the end of the day, the micro is pretty good. And so if you get a washout because of the macro, geopolitics tends to create good buying opportunities.
20 is not expensive. So 20 times 375, that's what you're saying?
375, yeah.
So that's 75.
But that's current
7,500.
numbers.
Right.
That's current numbers, and that's already up $18 from the beginning of the year.
And 20 is not expensive for market.
So it seems pretty, you know, but look, we've had a big rally. The market seems overbought, and now you're seeing these companies come out the last couple of days, and they're reporting good numbers, but they're saying, well, we don't know about the macro, and the market's getting nervous.
When you saw the war or excursion, whatever you want to call it, in the sell-off, which was similar to Liberation Day, when you saw 13 straight up days in the NASDAQ, were you expecting that?
I think muscle memory is really important. And last year, a lot of people pivoted and turned negative, and they sold stocks. And I think what happened this year is we're not going to make that mistake again. And we got a lot of calls from people saying, hey, when's the time to buy? I don't want to make the mistake I made last year. So it doesn't surprise me we didn't have the magnitude of the sell-off. And people wanted to buy the dip. They wanted to buy the dip because last year was a great opportunity. They missed it. So I don't think we're going to get a big decline again because it would have been a repeat of last year. Too many people have egg on their faces by pivoting last year to see a real pivot.
You actually mentioned AI as one of the headwinds as far as AI disruption. A lot of people think the only reason we're moving higher is because of the benefits down the road for AI. Or just to build out the capital spending.
I don't agree with that, Joe, because no one's raising numbers because of savings because of AI. They're raising numbers.
They're raising numbers on CapEx from the big companies.
That's true, but the big companies haven't seen the return yet, right? So their numbers aren't going up, and that's what drives the S&P. That's to come. But if you look at all technological innovation, the market focuses on the losers first. And then it focuses on, oh, wait, this is margin profitability. I was around the mid-'90s. We all focused on, oh, bad for the newspapers, bad for the publishers, bad for the books, right? And then ultimately, later into the 90s, oh, wait, a lot of companies are going to be a lot more profitable. And that's why the S&P doubled in the late 90s before the dot-com bubble.
At this point,
when we think about the earnings picture and where you see potential path for opportunities here, is it all about the Mag 7, or are we looking at AI infrastructure, the next tier?
I think we're looking at AI infrastructure, and that includes some of the Mag 7, the hyperscalers, some Microsoft, Meta, Google, Amazon. Apple's not as much of an AI play at the moment. We also like that one. But it's really tech more broadly. There's a lot of great stuff happening and a lot of fundamental momentum in the semiconductor space. One thing we are seeing, though, with companies in industrials, like we had Raytheon, RTX, and GE post great numbers yesterday. Stocks got hit. So a lot of areas are very expensive. That's not the case in tech. So I think from an earnings season standpoint, tech is a great opportunity because that's where the earnings momentum is, but the valuations have been hit. So we may see some more positive reactions to good earnings news. What we're seeing with areas like industrials, the numbers are great, but the stocks sell off because industrials are trading relatively rich. They're not down much from their peak valuations. Tech has really seen a big reset, and it's ironic because that's where the best growth is. So we think that's where the biggest opportunity is for this particular earnings season here in Q1.
Alec, let me ask you this. A part of your base case for your bullish views is also about the Fed, right? And you see the Fed easing later this year. When I look at the CME Fed Watch tool, it doesn't really look very likely. What gives you the confidence that rate cuts are on the table? Even you got Kevin Warsh's testimony yesterday that didn't signal that.
Right. Well, everyone knows the president wants rate cuts. And so if Warsh had done that, he would have played into the sock puppet narrative that some of the Democrats were trying to portray. I wouldn't read too much into what he did or didn't say yesterday in front of the Congress. But our base case is that the war ends, energy prices cool, Fed cuts rates. So Warsh definitely has a more dovish predisposition than his predecessor. And I think once this, war-related energy inflation risk recedes, he'll be more free to cut rates. We're only looking for one. I think the market's pricing in about a one out of three chance of a rate cut this year. So a view is definitely out of consensus, but that's generally how you make money if you can get those right. So we're comfortable with the call, but it's really based on the war winding down. On the flip side, I will say a major risk to the AI infrastructure trade is if the Strait of Hormuz remains blocked indefinitely. Eventually, that's going to affect semiconductor production in Asia because those countries are the most sensitive to what's going on in the Strait. They get more of their energy from the Strait than Europe or the U.S. So we definitely need to get that situation resolved, but our base case is that that'll happen.
Don't you think that the companies benefiting from all the spending are counteracting the disruptive effects of AI? Or do you think the companies doing the spending need to show a return or they're going to get penalized?
You know what's interesting is I think this is a classic battle between Wall Street's focus on the short-termism and companies are willing to invest for the long term, which is Wall Street saying, oh, these big guys, they're spending a lot of money, their free cash is going down. And you have the smartest guys in Silicon Valley saying, this is going to enhance return. We are going to generate. And you saw CEO of Amazon say, this is going to be very bullish for long-term growth. And so I think that's, for the industry, I think that's the battle that's going on. It's not apparent to Wall Street yet, but these companies are making the investments. So I think there's a big fat pitch here of investing in these companies now when the CapEx numbers haven't produced the results yet.
Would anything change in your view if oil was $150? Of
course.
It would.
100%, yeah.
100% if it was 150.
I think 200 even more. I think it would change my view. I think right now you're getting more tax receipts, refunds coming in. That's offsetting the higher prices. But higher oil is the one thing that we've imported from abroad.
Another thing that President Trump said yesterday, I would have expected oil to be 200 and I would have expected the Dow to be down, or the markets to be down 20%. I mean, it's still early. That's what scares me.
Because
you sure?
Because last year, the market learned last year. Don't pivot on what he says.
If we got bogged down,
downturn in tariffs,
because tariff market saying I'm not going to get burned by these, headlines.
Well, do you think it's because they think eventually the president will be swayed to not allow those things to happen to the market?
One man can pivot. He pivoted last year and caused tariffs to come down. Yeah. One man can pivot and cause oil prices
one man can't pivot and open the strait.
Maybe the slight distinction.
Right. It's not one
may
person.
not just be a one-man choice.
You can't open the strait.
This is not the one-man choice.
It's not going back to 65, but it's probably not going to 150 if he pivots.
Right, but then the question is, what is it? And are we sitting at 90 on WTI or 99
the typical pattern is you retrace about half, so 80. Is that going to cause the economy to collapse? I don't think so.
Well, you tell me what you think is going to happen in the Strait. Because the one man who flips and says, okay, I'm out, doesn't mean that they're out.
Right.
Iran's not out.
We got more oil coming elsewhere. Look, at the end of the day, Andrew, you always have to be very careful on getting too bearish on oil when it goes off, because somehow more oil finds its way to the markets. Okay. You want to be bearish on oil when it gets close to triple digits.
By bearish, you mean prices going higher.
Prices going down. I'm saying don't buy into it's heading for the $200.
Right.
It's not been the right trade for the market.
Right.
There's a lot of supply out there.
KG, I mean, you really have to stay on the edge of your seat. So yesterday after the close, as you and I were speaking, we did have, of course, Trump extending the ceasefire. Now we're learning from the White House via Fox that it's a 3 to 5 days. That should take us to talks possibly happening as soon as Friday, according to President Trump this morning. Iran's still threatening to hit power plants if the U.S. strikes escalate. So where do things stand, and what do you make of oil higher, stocks higher?
Yeah, an interesting dynamic that we were seeing taking place here. Oil higher, stocks higher, yields a little bit lower, and dollar is really trying to find its way here. But if you're looking at it from a technical standpoint, the dollar looks like it wants to move a little bit higher over the coming weeks here. I think this is a market that is really kind of transitioning from the geopolitical risk and now focusing on the earnings, especially for the Mag 7 names over the next week and a half or so. And that optimism that we have seen, this outperformance for earnings already for components in the S&P 500 leads you to believe that maybe estimates from analysts were a little bit too low, and we could see those re-rated over the next month and a half or so. And the market is a forward pricing indicator or mechanism as well. So they might be a little bit more optimistic that a deal can be done between the U.S. and Iran. What I do find interesting on the other side of that, though, Sam, is that these deadlines are kind of inching up or getting close to the weekend. We know the weekend can take on some additional activity when it comes to the military front, just like we saw for last weekend. So I think we're holding up for now. I think the earnings are going to be in focus, and a lot of the commentary coming from Iran seems like they are not trying to cooperate, but the market's really still putting more weight on the comments coming out of the White House and the U.S. rather than Iran, even though there is some perceived risk, especially when you're looking at shipping. I think 3 cargo ships were actually attacked yesterday evening into this morning, and I believe 2 of them were actually commandeered by the Iranians. So that's another reason why we are seeing oil prices higher, energy stocks higher, as well as these tanker rates continuing to escalate or move higher as well.
Okay, we'll continue to watch that dynamic in this market. Certainly fascinating as crude oil has been picking up. We're above $90 a barrel right now. No doubt some of those traders keeping an eye on some of those headlines you just mentioned. I did see the UK Navy said some container ships were actually hit as well. Just talk to us about the earnings, though. As you say, the markets are very much focused on the fundamentals. We got a number of key names out this morning. We throw it ahead to the closing bell. We've got Tesla up, obviously, IBM, which is not your grandpa's IBM anymore, and obviously ServiceNow, which is going to be a nice corporate read on what's going on in softwares. Which one will you be looking out for the most this afternoon?
Well, there'll be 2. I think ServiceNow is actually interesting because of that bounce to the upside that we've seen over the last week and a half or so, and also the fact that the options market is pricing in a pretty substantial move. But I think if you're trying to get a gauge as to the geopolitical risk and how that's actually impacting the U.S. economy, as well as the logistics lines around the world, I think you're looking at CSX, which is not a sexy name by any stretch of the imagination. But if you're looking at this company, it's actually near its highs and trying to break out even higher here. The rails are very interesting because we might see an economic slowdown in some parts of the world, obviously looking at Australia, maybe parts of the European Union, as well as some of the Asia-Pacific markets. But CSX, along with Union Pacific, they also charge, surcharges or fuel charges onto their customers as well. And they re-rate those very aggressively and very quickly when we do see market dynamics shift in the manner that they have. So those fuel charges or the surcharges could actually be a tailwind for them that allows them to offset maybe some of the volume loss that we may see in the coming quarters. And I think it's just going to be a really good read through as to what's happening in the overall economy here in the United States, especially on the East Coast, which is where they actually service what is going on with autos. That's a big part of their business. Coal shipments, that coal trade has actually been a really profitable one this year. And I think that'll be a really good one for market participants to kind of read that conference call, read that earnings announcement, and see and get a little bit of a flavor as to what could actually happen next here when it comes to GDP, as well as some of the other metrics that we focus on a macroeconomic base.